today I'm going to be doing just a nice little crochet and chat. I have a quick little kitty pattern that I'm going to make up in my favorite faux fur. So stick around and let's crochet together. Hey everyone, I'm Kat. I run NocturneCat.Crochet on Instagram. And today I'm going to be making something with this beautiful strawberry milkshake pink faux fur yarn from Knotted Cat. I have been wanting to make something with this for a while, and I decided it would be really fun to make just a simple, cute little kitty cat. I'm going to get the things that I need, which is my faux fur, got my brush over here, some scissors, an eye tool from my friend Crafted in Dragonfire, some safety eyes. I haven't decided which color I want, so I brought 2 different sets, and of course my hooks. So go ahead and grab a project and let's crochet together. So for today I'm going to be using a 5mm hook. This is what works for my tension. Of course it's going to be different for you because we all have different tension, and that's totally okay. So let's get started. Grab yourself a project and let's crochet. All right, so don't forget, when you're working with faux fur, you're going to be working inside out. I know it feels like an odd thing to do, but I promise it does look really nice when you do inside out. It helps keep the piece looking really fluffy and really soft. So again, doesn't feel normal, but it looks really fantastic. So I do highly suggest making your piece inside out. And don't forget to use stitch markers. You can make sure that you're not losing a stitch, which is obviously very important. And that first round can be a little bit hard. I often have to focus a little bit more when I am first starting out. So don't be worried if you need a little bit of time to focus on it, especially with a fur piece. It does take a little bit longer to get the hang of it, and learning those stitches and how they work. But I promise, with practice, you'll definitely get there. I am really loving this color. I like how vibrant it is, but also very soft. It's not a color I often see for pinks. I like that it doesn't lean into the coral color too much. It definitely still keeps it very peachy pink, which I really like. So I'm excited to see a full piece with this because the color is just really beautiful, in my opinion. So my objective for this project is to make a very tiny kitty cat. So I want to make something that I can potentially make a little bit more easily. Fur yarn. Ah, hi. This is Loki. He does enjoy when I make things with fur yarn, so I'm not surprised he's come up here to say hello. Say hi, baby. He is almost a year old, not quite. Funny thing is, he's bigger than my other cat. Hey. He's still learning to leave the yarn alone. You can tell this yarn tail is driving him a little bit crazy, but he's doing a good job, aren't you, buddy? I think he might be part Maine Coon, just based on his size. No. But that is still to be seen, since he's not even a year old yet. So we'll see how much bigger he gets. something I wanted to point out when I'm working with fur yarn is my decreases. So I don't do an invisible decrease because it's a little too difficult, so I do a regular one, which means going in once, going in twice, and pulling through all the loops. It does make it easier when you're working with fur to go through both of those stitches and pull through. You might need to maneuver it a little bit just to make sure you're getting it right. So you can see this is how I did it inside out. It is a little bit harder because it's not how you would naturally crochet, but it does look really cute and fluffy. Then I pull that yarn tail through so that it's not hanging out outside. Just a little bit of stuffing. Bye, Lolo. You gonna sit there? Thank you, baby. My other cat has joined beside us. We will see if he decides to jump up here as well. I wouldn't be surprised. He's very familiar with the camera. I think Loki learned how to pose because Binks, my older cat, would always pose with my plushies. Funny thing is, Stop. I never made Binks do that. He naturally wanted to pose with my plushies. Don't you take my stitch marker. And what's funny is that when I was taking photos, Binks would just run over there and he would join the photo shoot. Oh, hi. Oh, you saw Binks for all of 2 seconds. Again, this is why my business is called NocturneCat.Crochet, because this is what happens when I crochet. And okay. Hi guys. You can sit on my stitch marker. Cats, they are the reason my business is called NocturneCat.Crochet, because they like to sit with me while I'm crocheting, as you can see. Hey, Binksy boy. It originally was named for Binks because he was always with me and he is very cute with my plushies and posing. So now you've seen both of my kitty cats. Hey baby, you're so beautiful. And how they are always with me. Oh, my sweet boys. But I will say, training Loki to leave the yarn alone is still a struggle. Binks naturally was that way. Binks didn't really mind the yarn. He didn't try to eat it. I don't know if it was maybe because he was past the kitten stage, but he's always been more of a, let me just sit with you and enjoy the company. So he usually is right beside me when I crochet, and it looks like he might sit here for the rest of this video, so you all might get to enjoy my little Binksy boy sitting here for a while. One of the harder things about fur yarn is the stitch count. You can't necessarily go back and be like, oh yes, 1, 2, 3. It's kind of like, nice, pretty blob. So keeping count is important and definitely something that you should be paying attention to. I say that as I am kind of paying attention to them. But again, I've been working with fur a little bit longer, so my concentration can be slightly split sometimes. Not often. One question that I was asked about working with fur yarn is if I ever used acrylic yarn to crochet with the fur. I did it once and I could see the acrylic. I don't know if it was just the specific fur yarn that I was using. It may not have been thick enough, but I didn't like that I could see it. I think if you wanted to do it, I've heard that it works really well, and it can be great for when you're just starting out and learning how to use it. I would suggest making sure you color match really well so that the acrylic yarn that you're using will easily hide inside of your piece and you won't see it on the outside. It is very helpful because it gives you a little bit more structure. You can see your stitches a little bit better because you can part them and see where the acrylic yarn is. So I would definitely say give it a try. Know that you'll need to size your hook up a little bit more. I would say maybe 0.5 to almost a whole size to account for that acrylic yarn being there. But it definitely could be something to help you on your journey and getting used to the feel of fur yarn, figuring out how you can best work with it and build up the confidence. I think part of working with faux fur is the confidence. I know that sounds kind of silly, but it's definitely one of the things that kept me from working with it for a while was just this fear that I would work with it and I would be terrible at it and I would fail. And that fear of failure can be so crippling sometimes. It can stop you from doing things that you can do or things that you really want to do. So one of my big things last year was not letting the fear of failure stop me from trying. And that translated to working with fur yarn, which seems kind of silly, like that's my fear of failure. But when you are an artist and this is part of your brand and what you do, it's realistic that it would be one of my fears, that fear of failure in working with something, because it's an investment to buy the fur yarn, to be working with something that is more difficult and might be slightly more pricey because of the quality that you're going to get and the fact that it is a more specialty item, which, by the way, I think it's 100% worth the price that you pay for it. And I will say, this is just my little plug because I do love this yarn. Her prices are fantastic and hers is very competitive, which makes this something I can actually do. And I do appreciate that. But again, it is still an investment because once you start working with it, one, you're going to want to work with it again. And you want to get all the colors, and then you need to have enough colors. So that first initial stock can be a little daunting, but I'd definitely say it's worth it. You know, if you've never used fur yarn, I would say get maybe like 1 or 2 skeins so that you can get an idea of if it's something that you want to work with or that you feel comfortable working with, and then go from there. My beautiful boy. Isn't that you? It's my baby. He is such a sweet cat, aren't you? You sweet boy? Yeah. One thing to note when figuring out what you want to make and deciding if you want to do a faux fur piece is making sure that you have enough of it. So look at the yardage and make sure you have maybe a little bit more than you would think you need. For most projects, not all, but for most projects, I would say I use at least 2 skeins of one color. If I'm doing multiple colors, there's a good chance that I won't need 2 skeins. But knowing myself and the fact that I like to do more complicated pieces, I often make sure I buy in pairs with fur yarn. That way I am sure to have enough and I don't have to be as worried about if I need a longer tail on something. I'm like, oh no, am I going to run out of it? I have it on hand, which does make it nice. Again, when you're working with fur, you want to feel for those stitches. That's why I like to have, my finger is right back here on the actual piece so I can feel the stitch. It also helps me with my tension. It makes me be conscious of it. I probably hold the fur yarn a little bit tighter because I want to make sure I don't have gaps. And I don't necessarily think you need to. I think it's just me. Maybe not. Maybe it's other people too. But you want to make sure that you're feeling for each stitch. And once you kind of get on that roll of knowing where your stitches are, it does make it a lot easier as you work your way around. Make sure you have enough out. Have your emotional support animal beside you. Hey, buddy. I would also note with fur yarn that you're probably going to need to work on pieces that don't have rounds that are too big or too small. I have found that it's really hard for me to do rounds of 4 or continuous rounds of 6, especially since I'm working inside out. You can see my yarn is, I'm holding it like this and I'm going from the back side of the piece. So it does make it a little bit harder when you have small rounds because you're maneuvering your hook from the inside of the piece. So I will say that is one of the harder things about fur is if it's smaller rounds, it can be a little bit more difficult. But if you take your time, you can definitely get there. Now this is going to be something really simple. Hopefully it turns out the way that I envision it. It's never a guarantee now, is it? But my goal is to make these little paws that are very simple, very easy, but if someone wanted to try and make it in fur, it would be maybe more attainable because it's not as large, doesn't have as many pieces, so potentially a little bit easier to work with. I'm gonna add a tiny little bit of fluff. Fortunately, it doesn't need much. And I'll close this piece up. This is going to be the back leg. Don't forget to frequently stretch. Move your fingers, wiggle them around so that they don't cramp up. One of the parts of working with faux fur is knowing that there might be a few fluffs. But if you've ever worked with chenille yarn, then you'll be perfectly fine because it doesn't shed as bad as that. What used to get me was when I would be working with black chenille yarn and a little tiny piece would be on my clothes and I was absolutely certain it was a spider. I can't tell you how many times that happened, and I was always very relieved it wasn't a spider, but that initial moment of panic was real because I'm not a fan of spiders. So that panic was very genuine, but my husband did find it funny. I don't really work with chenille anymore because there's not a consistent one in my area. I started using Ali's Softy Plus instead of chenille yarn, and I really enjoy the texture. I like the way it looks, so that has been my go-to. I know there are some really good chenille yarns out there. One that I've heard rave reviews from my bestie Ali McKenzie, which is Ali McKenzie Crafts, is she really likes a really good chenille, which is by Zaddy Crafts. I've heard really wonderful things about them, really wonderful things about the yarn itself. So I would recommend that because I do trust Ali's judgment on that. Ali is very careful with the things that she promotes and what she uses. Her quality is absolutely impeccable. I can say that wholeheartedly because I do have a couple pieces from her. She sent me a cat to look like Loki when I had a procedure last year. It was a very sweet surprise. And she also sent a cow, which I'll put both of those up here. That was our friendship cow, because she also sent a cow to our other bestie, Nerdy Girls Crochet. So I have the honor of 2 pieces from her. And I can say she definitely puts a lot of pride and joy and love into each of her pieces. So if you haven't seen Ali McKenzie's YouTube channel, I would highly recommend it. And definitely give her a follow because her work is gorgeous and she's just a great human being in general. She's always been so kind and supportive. And you would love her stuff, promise. Okay, so that is the last haul that I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do some light stretching of my hands. I like to gently stretch them out, give those muscles a moment to relax. I do have hypermobility, so I have to be a little bit careful with how I stretch. I don't want to overstretch and hurt my joints. Okay, the next thing that I am going to do is make some ears. This is the dreaded 4 single crochet in a magic ring, but I'll be increasing the round, so I think it should be okay. One thing I always find interesting is people's reasons for starting crochet. I love to hear the human side of it and the story of what it is that inspired them, why they decided to start on this journey. Because we all come to it for different reasons, but we find a community, which is really the coolest thing. I will say sometimes it is hard to go through all those layers. So don't be afraid to take your time. I work with this often and it is still difficult for me. So don't feel bad if you need to take your time. I think that's kind of the point of crochet is don't feel bad if you need to take your time. It's meant to be something you enjoy, something that brings you joy. So, you know, if you're getting frustrated and you can, take a break, take a step back, and come back at it when you're feeling a little bit better. All right, make one more ear. The funny thing with fur yarn is it doesn't look like much until you start putting things together. It looks like, you know, just kind of a blob of pink, but I'm hoping that once I get the body and the head, it'll take more shape. And we'll be able to see the vision come together. But isn't that just the nature of a pattern in the first place? You never really know how it's going to look until you're able to complete every single part of it. I think that's the hard thing about pattern designing too, is you can have a vision in mind, but sometimes it just doesn't work out the way you'd hope. That's okay. I think that process is still so valuable because you learn about designing, you learn about shaping, and I think it's a valuable thing to look at something that's not exactly what we wanted and say, hey, this is still good, or this is cool, I learned from it. Our society is very driven by being perfect the first go round or always getting it right, but I don't really think that's what it's about. I think the process oftentimes is far more important in learning something about yourself, learning about people around you, and connecting to humanity and the fact that we are going to have to try and try and try again, and that's okay. Trying again and again is a good thing. It means you're learning, it means you're growing, and growth is good. So if you're thinking about working with fur or working with other things, or maybe you're thinking about designing, don't be afraid to try, play around with it. And if you don't get it right in the first go, it's okay. Enjoy the process, be proud of yourself for what you did, and then you can revise, do it again. I know when I was working on my tiger pattern Tiggy, I made 3 different heads for that particular pattern because it just wasn't what I had wanted. And it was the difference of 1 or 2 rounds for me. But I was really proud of myself for trying again and again until I had a product that I was really excited about. And even though it felt like a waste to have made multiple heads, 2 of which are now just chilling out in my bin, I was really proud of the fact that I didn't give up. And I don't think we give ourselves enough credit for when we do something that's difficult or we do something that we're proud of ourselves for. Think of something that you're proud of yourself for doing, or for trying, or for doing again. I think it's perfectly acceptable and viable and something we should do, which is acknowledging what we've done, what we're proud of, and taking that into account. I often find that as adults, we are told to just keep going, just keep pushing, but we never stop to say, hey, I did that, and I'm really proud of myself for it, even if it's something small. So maybe do that right now and be proud of yourself. I know that might sound silly, I'm aware, but it is invaluable to take time for you, acknowledge your work, what you've done, what you've accomplished, and carry that strength into the next day. Okay. So what I'm creating here is a snout. So I have a lot of parts, which is perfectly fine. I'm going to work on the head now. This is where the fun starts, because we can start to see the piece coming together, whereas maybe you're seeing the piece coming apart with all of the fluff that's hanging out on my desk. Every time I try to brush it away, it kind of floats up even further. So I'm just not going to do that right now. Right. For the head, I usually like to do 8 single crochet in a magic ring. When I do 6, I always get kind of a cone effect where it bubbles up at the top. So my go-to is 8 single crochet in a magic ring. It seems to work best for me, and I know for a lot of other people too. So I've finished the head, and I have 2 different sets of eyes. I'm not sure which ones I want to use. If I want to go with the bright green, more of a, got some more blue in this set. You know, I think I'm going to go with the bright green. Kind of feeling the bright green today. So with this piece, I'm going to put the eyes a little bit higher. Because the goal is to have it be all in one. So I'll make the body with the head, so there'll be one piece. So you can see it here. And then this is the nose, so I need to make sure there's enough space for it. And I have the little ears right here. So I think I'm gonna say yes to the placement of these eyes. I might adjust the look of them a little bit. Let's make sure they're turned upwards. You know what? I actually might pop this over one more row. Just because when you sync, it will get closer together. Yeah, I think that's gonna work. The hardest thing with sinker eyes, especially with fur, is getting them into the actual piece. I obviously take a decent amount of time to make sure I've got it right. So I've got my eye tool, put the eye into the back, and then put your weight on it. And that sinks it in. This eye tool is really handy. One thing when you're putting in sinker eyes with fur is make sure you move that fur away so you can see where it is. Okay, I'm happy with that. Now we have the eyes sunk in. Perfect. And I can go and pull this tail through. So that I have it there. And I'll continue working on this piece. Now that I've got the head and the little eyes. And this will go right here. Perfect. So this piece, again, I'm going to do those decreases. You can see how I'm crocheting inside out by going into the piece from the inside as opposed to working around the outside of it, which is how I would do it normally. But that's the best way I can describe crocheting inside out, is by going into the piece from the inside. Hi, Loki. So I have the head the way I want it. It's cute and small, but obviously it's gonna need a trim, which we will do. So I'm going to stuff it and then start working on the body. Okay, we're back for day 2. I have finished the body on this and closed it up. I've brushed out the fluff so it looks like kind of like a little fluffy chicken at this moment, but it will be our kitty cat. So the next thing I think I want to do is add this nose. I have a safety nose that I'm going to insert into the center of that magic circle. Super cute. And add the back. Make sure it clicks and it's all the way on. I'm going to brush it out like I normally do. Okay, nice and fluffy. And I'm going to add this to the front of the plushie. So this is going to be the nose for the kitty cat. It's going to go right about here. I know it's covering at the moment, but it won't once I do a trim. I'm going to use my Ami sticks. These are from my bestie, Nerdy Girls Crochet. She keeps me supplied with these because she knows I use them all the time. Make sure I like it, because if I don't, I can redo it. Next thing is going to be the ears. These are my little ears. I like to curve my cat ears when I'm sewing them. Ears on. What I'm going to do is bring this part forward so it's at a curve, so it brings those ears in just a bit to be more cat-like. And lead back. Another thing I like about using the Ami sticks is that it takes away some of the anxiety in sewing on fur pieces, since you really can't see as much. It helps me know that I'm putting it in where it needs to be and that it's not going to move around as much. I got the Ami sticks because I wasn't so worried about messing up a piece. You can also check to make sure they're lined up. Looks right. So then I'll sew it on. Don't forget to go back and hide in all of your yarn tails once you're happy with placement of things. I think I'm going to add another stitch or two to the ears to curve them a little bit more. Not quite as curved as I want them. So I'm going to go in and add a few more. I'm just getting the edge of the ear here so that when I pull it at an angle, it will pull that ear in just a little bit more. Just curves it ever so slightly. I know it looks kind of silly right now because it's hard to see, but that is how it is with fur yarn, is it's definitely a little bit harder to see what the finished product is going to look like because there is so much shaping and work that needs to be done with your scissors to make a piece come together. It really helps define it and show off little details like the eyes and little additions that you make. So we'll say that is a very important part, is adding in that final touch of shaping. One of the front legs. I'm going to measure to make sure this one fits in fine too. Looks good. Sew this on. One thing I like to do is tack down the limbs, especially on pieces where they sit. So I'll go back in about a row or two underneath and sew it to the body. That keeps it from splatting forward or losing some of its positioning. It's just adding a few steadying stitches. See how it stays in place? And let's do the next leg. Okay, so the legs are sewn on. So cute and tiny. I'm going to do a tail next. So for this particular one, I'm going to do just a slip stitch onto the piece and chain and go back down the chain. I was kind of hoping I could use one of my yarn tails, but I don't know if they're going to be long enough. We're going to risk it. All right. So I'm going to go onto the back of the plushie, go through one of these loops. Whoops. Go through one of these loops, add on the yarn tail. Slip stitch on. And we'll do a short little tail with a couple of chains, and we'll crochet back down the chain to give the kitty cat a tail. We're definitely playing yarn chicken right now. Ooh, just enough. we go. Cute little tail. And I will weave in those ends and do a little shaping. My favorite part. I do enjoy shaping the faces. Okay, I have all the pieces assembled. I'm gonna brush the fur out. Remember, this is super important for your piece. It will help pull up some of the yarn that is trapped. So you always want to brush. You're going to probably see some fluffs flying around. It's normal, it's okay. Try to brush gentle, but enough that you're able to give it that fluffy look. I usually brush a piece out before I sew it together, so that when I go back to do a final brush, some of it is already done. But you always want to do it again, especially when you're sewing, because you're gonna pull down some of the fur and trap it. So, okay, so now that this piece is fluffed up, I'm going to trim the face, maybe a few other parts just to give it some shape. I'm going to start in with the eyes. Again, opening it up so that you can see the safety eye. I still need to buy new scissors. Probably be the next thing I do. There we go. And we can see the face. Looks better already. Get as much of this as I can, and again do a little bit of layering with that trim, because you do want to blend it with the rest of the piece so it doesn't have a super stark line. I don't think there's a way to completely prevent that from happening, but as much as you can, do a little blending. Little trimming here and here so that you can blend that fur. You can see I've got my little pile starting. Now I'm gonna fluff up this middle piece and trim around it. Give it more of a uniform look. It'll also keep it from getting into the eye. So I've got face trimmed up pretty quick. I am going to come in and trim these ears a bit to make them more pointed. Give them more of a kitty cat look. Isn't it amazing how something so simple can change the look of a plushie? Just trimming up those ears, keeping them round down at the bottom to give it that kitty cat shape. Never underestimate the power of a good haircut. And here we go. We have a cute little fur kitty cat. It's pretty simple, fairly quick, especially for a fur piece. It's not too difficult to make. I think the shaping on the ears definitely helps, because you do lose some of that shape when you're working with fur. But it's super cute and tiny, and something that I could make a few more times and be able to sell at markets, which is really what I was going for here. Is sometimes with fur pieces, I make them very large and I can only make one. So I like having something that I can make maybe a few more of and take with me to a market. But if you stuck around this long, I really appreciate it. Thank you for being here. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and come back again for some more Crochet and Chat. Bye everyone.